What is up, guys? Fadeaway82 coming at you with some raid cam footage from the US Restopia server. We're taking a look at Dirt McGirt's base, the DMG clan's base. They built on an anvil-shaped rock here and carved out a nice slice of life for themselves on the Restopia server. They use the terrain, the topography here really to the best of their ability, and if you notice, they built for that rock specifically, but the terrain was kind to them this time and it gave them a river to their back, a lake to their side, and a mountain in front of the base here. And what that means is that it's very difficult to place raid bases in a close proximity to this base. There is a high mountain peak which would give the raid team typically an advantage because they'd have the height over this base, but on top of that high mountain peak it's actually too cloudy to see down on the base, so you can't really see what's going on, call out targets, or even place your shots. So taking a look at what's going on here, this is the in-between the raid base and then the main compound, and there's high exterior stone walls that are placed here. These are defensive positions that the raiders can hide behind, and due to the height of that anvil-shaped rock, the raiders have to really be pressed up against these walls to avoid the fire from the members who are on the top of that base on top of that rock. So if they're not pressed up, they're going to be taking fire, and this is the inside of that raid base. What you're looking at here is fire coming back from the defenders, from Dirt McGirt and his crew, right into that raid base. Those windows were put there so that the raiders can shoot out of that base, but due to the height of the base on that anvil-shaped rock, it's really actually to their disadvantage because DMG and Clan have the height advantage here, so they can shoot right down into that base, and it's basically a shooting gallery for them. So the intention of that raid base was noble, and in most situations it would have been highly effective, but what happened here is that they're unable to build up the height to get to the point where they're going to have an advantage because DMG and his crew are able to keep them from building up. So the minute they turn something to twig, it's blown apart, so they can't build and upgrade, so the base is pretty much a stump at this point, and DMG and the Clan are just raining fire in there. Typically when raiding a base like CML, where the inherent height advantage is had by the defenders, you want to break into separate fire teams, separate raid teams, and hit that base simultaneously from different directions. So the raiders here didn't do that. They put all the resources into that one raid base, and I'm not sure exactly the logic behind that. They may have wanted to construct a massive behemoth raid base like we saw in the last raid cam where CML constructed something that was like this tower of oppression that was actually very impressive. So that didn't happen here, and I'm not sure if this was a base that was constructed by Plan and then some of the CML clan members mixed in, but it does appear as though Plan and the CML clans have a bit of an alliance here. Obviously, they're fighting against DMG, and they really are trying to get in there. So they have some members here that are out trying to chip away through a wood wall there, and it looks as though that wood wall actually leads to not really an airlock, but a section where there's another wood wall and then a high exterior stone wall. So I'm not sure if they're trying to get to the corpses that are stuck in between those two walls, because perhaps those corpses have lots of rockets, C4 or something, or if they just are intending to get through that wood wall because they want to get through a point of entry over there. I can't see a reason for going through that wood wall other than they think that they might need to get something off those corpses. So again, DMG and the Clan are really able to hold it down from just staying on top of that main base and also utilizing those secondary flank towers. So Big Pothead from inside that raid base just fired a rocket towards DMG. So the first rocket has been fired. We get a second rocket going back here. He's hitting one of those outer flank towers, which is a point that's giving him a lot of frustration at this point. So it's smart to focus his rockets on that target that's going to be his main opposition. Down on the ground, we have some members who have moved outside here. They're trying to take the fight to the ground. And notice the doors here that are on that raid base. So there's more than one door, and that's a really smart thing to do with those raid bases because those are often compromised, and you want more than one way out of that base. So that's a really smart move to put in any base, but especially in those raid bases. So again, what we're seeing here is some action on the ground. Some members of DMG are down on the ground, as well as some members of the raid team, and they're locking it down there. Back over at the main compound, the clan members who are there are holding their positions calm. They're staying calm and collected. And Dirt McGirt's now sending rockets back towards that raid base. He's repaying that favor. They just sent a couple rockets up towards his rock base. He's sending a few back to make sure that they know what's up. So at this point, it's really going to be a battle of resources, a battle of attrition. Who has more rockets? Who can blow the other person to hell? And it's going to be more difficult for the Raiders to have a united offensive here because they're just getting peppered with rockets, and at the same time they have to really repair that raid base, because inside that raid base you can see there are beds, there's chests, everything they need is in there. So if that stuff starts getting blown apart, it's going to be very difficult for them to pick up the pace and gain the momentum here. They're already behind in terms of what's going on here, so it's going to be really hard if they're able to pull off the raid. They're going to have to really have some luck on their side, and maybe some allies come in from a different direction. But again, notice here they're trying to turn that to Twig. As soon as they drop it down, the incoming fire from DMG takes that back out of the equation. What you can do to sort of mitigate against that happening, guys, is have one person ready to upgrade it to wood as soon as the other person throws it down. It's really the only way to stop that from happening, and it's really a timing issue, so you have to really have that rhythm going. But it can be done, and that's how you can avoid that from happening. Down on the ground here, we have some members of DMG who came out of the base, and they're assessing what's going on over here at the raid base and figuring out how they're going to neutralize that. Dirt McGirt's sending more rockets back down. He's making sure that that base is hollowed out at this point. He wants to take out all those spawn points, respawn points, being the beds and the sleeping bags. If you're not aware, guys, that's how you respawn in Rust. You have to have a bed or a sleeping bag. This is a vanilla server. This is Rustopia, so there's nothing on here in terms of teleportation or anything that is abnormal. All the players work for these resources. Not to say you don't on modded servers, but it does come a little bit easier with the modded territory. So this is vanilla, and this is what vanilla raids and bases look like. Inside that raid base, we can see that the bodies are piling up in there, and it is turning into a house of carnage. We've seen some scenes like that before, and Dirt's not letting up. He's sending rocket after rocket in there, and that base is falling apart. The Raiders are in a very delicate situation. The raid base has been compromised. The front of it's blown off in multiple locations here. So unless they patch it up really quickly, they are in imminent danger of losing everything they have in there. In these raid bases, they typically have lots of high-end supplies, including rockets, C4, large stacks of ammunition, so they might have to think about cutting their losses, especially now that there's been incendiary rockets that have been sent into that main base, which are going to be breaking apart those chests and also breaking apart the beds. If that's been corrected, guys, and they no longer destroy those deployable items, let me know, but I hope that they do, because it seems like they should, right? They're fire. So a random naked just got domed to the head down there in the field. Not sure if he was a scavenger or one of the raiders, but he's out of the equation at this point. Back in that main base, you can see that the Raiders are trying to patch it up, but again, it's sort of a back and forth game. The minute they put down Twig, it's taken back out, and you really have to, again, have that rhythm and timing down in order to really patch it up quickly. So you have to have multiple people working on the same objective when you're repairing those walls. On the ground level here, we have DMG members who are out in the inner part here between the raid base and the main compound, and they're starting to figure out what the deal is with this raid base and how they're going to be able to neutralize it. Notice some foundations are being put down on the side of that raid base, and the defenders here are now becoming the raiders of this base, and they are going to be building up to the side of it and trying to get in there and root out the remaining raiders who are in that base, and also gain access to whatever supplies they can salvage. It didn't look like CML and Plan were in there despawning a lot of loot, so they might have hightailed it out one of those doors, running over the mountain if they're able to make it, trying to get back to their main base with the lion's share of whatever was left over. Or there might be a lot of loot in there. No one really knows except the people who are there. But what you're seeing here is, again, footage of the raiders who are the defenders, who are now the raiders, who are building up and trying to get over the high exterior stone wall there. They don't want to fall into that wall and get shredded by the barbed wire, but they're trying to get the height here and propel themselves over into that raid base. There's a hole in the ceiling there where they can drop down into the base and again finish off the remaining members in there, take out those spawn points being the beds and the sleeping bags, and gain control of the primary cabinet, and they've at that point taken over that raid base. So at this point, the raid has shifted, guys, and it has taken a turn in terms of the favor of the defenders. It looked like the defenders pretty much had the favor. for the entire part of this footage. Again, not sure what happened before I arrived on the scene here, but I think it's a very interesting raid to see how those new rocks are working out as far as bases, if they're viable options. And I think a rock like DMG's one here, this anvil-shaped rock, is a highly effective build. It was more successful here because of the usage of those perimeter stone walls, those high exterior stone walls to sort of layer it up. But a solo player can build on that anvil-shaped rock quite effectively as well. And I think it's a great build for solo players and also for smaller to medium-sized groups. So, as always guys, I really hope you enjoyed this footage. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for watching the video. Thanks for liking the video. Thanks for subscribing. And I don't typically say those things because I think it's implied, but it is 1 year ago today that I started this YouTube channel, and I never thought I would have this many subscribers or views. So really guys, it means a lot to me, and I hope to keep doing it, and hope you guys keep on enjoying it. As always, Fado82, peace.